You're watching KREX 5 News.
Perfect. Well, we can just kind of get started. What kind of music were you listening to as a kid? That's something that really interests me.
Well, in order to answer that question, you have to transport yourself back to like 1950
Okay.
when I was 5 years old. 1951, 52, when I was 6, 7 years old. It was a whole different world then. It was the end of World War II. It was a very much quieter world. The phone didn't ring unless it meant something. If the phone rang at night, it was probably bad news. This kind of life. Not many cars passed by during the day. And the radio was the thing, pretty much. We didn't have television until probably 1952 or 53.
Okay. So
So
you kind
it
of
was
grew up
radio.
that way.
hmm And the radio shows had all kinds of different formats that would really work with your imagination. They had a show called The Make Believe Ballroom, and they would play all sorts of different songs, usually popular music. And then gradually, as the baby boom, which really is a huge number of teenagers that came from the soldiers coming back from World War II, they made big families, and those families ended up being teenagers. That was a new word, actually. Teenager never was coined back in those days to define us, which was this giant buying group in our teen years, and that would be middle 50s. So it was then that rock and roll started to happen. But before that, in 50, 51, 52, it was a very quiet kind of thing. And what I had to listen to were 78 RPM records that were left around the house, primarily by my mother and sister. My mother had some opera records that had Caruso singing, and they were a little scary to hear to hear Caruso singing, from 1910 or something. It was really heavy. And then there were other ones that were just Dinah Shore and Sinatra and whatever was that group of popular singers, with a lot of little novelty records thrown in. I remember we had a Phil Harris song called "That's What I Like About the South," which was a novelty thing, that kind of thing, stuff like that. So that's kind of what I started hearing.
Okay. Perfect. As far as as far as instruments, how many instruments do you play? And of the ones that you do play, what's your favorite?
I play the 6-string guitar. I play the Martin D28 is what I do, and I collect them as well. I probably got 50 guitars. They're the most magical guitar ever made, the best guitar ever made for acoustic playing, in my opinion. There's nothing that comes close to it. And I also play the long neck 5-string banjo, which I don't play anymore on stage, but I did for many years in the folk style, which I learned from some of the great players of that style: Eric Darling, Pete Seeger, Frank Hamilton, Bob Gibson. These people were folk players that played the long neck 5-string banjo. But I play that pretty much now just when I watch television. I'll a little frail a little bit and watch TV.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, I know you actually released an album back in 2018, a couple of years ago now. Given, we were all in quarantine back in 2020. A lot of songwriters were really pumping out music then. Are you working on anything now? Did you get anything done during the quarantine?
I got so much done, you have no idea. I mean, first of all, I have a re-release of a dozen Christmas songs that I've remixed and put new instrumentation on and just worked on and got them the way I wanted them. They'll come out next year. I've got a new album called American Boys, which is all about songs that I've written and a few songs I wrote with my guitar player, Vipperman. I'll show you if you want. The song goes, American boy, invented rock and roll, singing rhythm and blues with a hillbilly soul. They caused a sensation, shook up the nation. American boy, invented rock and roll. So that's the title song, and it's a fun song that we wrote together.
Good deal. Well, it sounds like you got another hit on your hands. Kind of speaking of hits, we got to talk about American Pie. 50-year anniversary. Kind of upon reflection, one of my questions, it's a nearly 9-minute song. Is there anything back then that you wish you'd added or kind of left out of the song? Or do you feel even 50 years later, it's exactly what you wanted?
It's exactly what I wanted.
That's what I'm talking about. Good deal.
Yeah, I finished, I did it until it was exactly the way I wanted it. And then one of the great things about people that represented me, and there weren't a lot of great things about people that represented me back in those days, but there were a few things. One was that if I signed a recording contract, I did whatever I wanted to do.
That's pretty good.
I didn't have anybody breathing over my shoulder and telling me, don't do this and don't do that. I did what I wanted.
There we go. Okay, perfect. Well, I just kind of want to ask, how do you feel about the song, even now being referred to as a cultural milestone? I mean, it's been in so many movies, so many TV shows. It's instantly recognizable as soon as you hear the intro. I mean, how do you feel about that even 50 years later?
Well, I feel like I've done something good. It's about all you can hope for, right?
I mean, yeah, I feel like as a musician, that's what you're hoping for is to,
Sure. You have no idea. It's hard for people to realize they have no idea how far down you are when you start. You get rejected all the time. You have to fight for jobs. You're a third act on a 3-act bill. I did this all through the 1960s, but I didn't just do that. I went to college. I got a degree. So I always was doing more with my time than just, dreaming and imagining that I had a career. I was working on that career, but I was also building other things for me to do, having more than one string to my bow, if you will. So I had options, if there was not going to be any music, then there was a plan B. But, the thing about it is that the longer once you commit to being a singer and a songwriter and shooting for a record contract and always fighting for jobs, the years go by and you don't have a medical plan and you don't have a safety net or retirement fund. And you're years and years away from people that you went to school with, and they've gone on in business and married and had children and been, pillars of the community. And you're kind of an outlaw, and what that is you better be successful on some level because you're way out on the end of the diving board. And if you fail, I could just as easily be homeless right now.
Okay. Well, yeah, it seems to have worked out.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sitting here and looking at all these tour dates you have lined up for the anniversary tour. Kind of what inspired you to take on such an ambitious tour? You're going everywhere. It says a cruise here, it looks like. Mm-hmm. Everywhere in the U.S. You're even hitting, a ton of European spots.
Well, I've done probably 25 world tours, maybe less, but no more than 25, but well more than 22. I can't tell you exactly how many, but To me, wherever I am is home. So the main thing is getting me to the place. Once I'm there, I'm cool. I mean, it might as well be home. So I do the show and whatever. The next day we travel again and we might travel home, or we might do the next show and drive there. That's fine. We're with everybody. So it's really not as hard as it seems. The hard part is getting there. And when you're young, there's a lot of anxiety, of course, attached with that. But I've been doing it for so long that I just surrender myself to the whole process, and the world is home to me, basically.
Absolutely. Yeah. I imagine at this point, you're kind of a smooth operator when it comes to the touring circuit.
Smooth as I can be.
Well, Don, what do you want to most be remembered for? When your time.
Oh, I know what I'm going to be remembered for.
Well,
I'm going to be remembered for my songs, my records, the performances that people can see on YouTube, the interviews, all that whole body of record that's out there that spans 50 years. That's what I'll be remembered for.
Absolutely. Do you, besides one of your own, or it can be one of your own, what's your all-time favorite song?
Geez, I really don't have an all-time favorite song. But I like White Christmas quite a bit because it's evocative of those early years that I described to you in the early 1950s, when life was just the beginning. And it was very warm to hear Crosby sing that song on the radio.
Absolutely. What about, some of your biggest inspirations coming up? I mean, I know who you were talking about, who you were listening to, but as far as like inspirations, who kind of pushed you forward in your career?
Well, I had a lot of people that I worked with, which I had to part with for various reasons. And some of those reasons were not good, but they all helped me in some way or other. And so I always think of it that way, that so many people cared, they really cared, and did the best they could. But, sometimes that's not enough, and you have to do something else. But everybody I met along the way that I worked with, agents, managers, promoters, they were all helping me in some fashion, to get something. I had a guy in England for years named Jeff Hanlon, and from that there came albums that I made, and there were situations that he put together, and TV specials that we got, and with the BBC and so on and so forth. So, like that in the United States, I had a manager in the beginning who was very good, and then he wasn't, and so I had to move on. And I had an agent named Guy Richard, who helped me a great deal in the last 6 years. And now I have another agent named Keith Nesbitt, who is phenomenal. And so all these people are very important to me.
Absolutely, with what you're doing. Just kind of wrapping up here, where's one of your favorite places to play? Somewhere that throughout all your tours you find yourself back in?
I like raunchy places. I like festivals and where people are drinking and big crowds. And I don't like buttoned up places, Well, I shouldn't say I don't like them, but I like everywhere I play, and I'm thankful that I have a job. But if I were to be totally honest, I would say that I like the Stagecoach was a great show, and Glastonbury in England was a fun show, because these festivals are with people, they just want to hear music. They're wide open and they're listening, and it's wonderful to play for them.
I've heard Glastonbury that's a hell of a place to play.
Well, they judge you by walking away. If they don't like you, they'll just walk off and you'll end up with half the audience you started with. Or if they like you, the audience will build and build. Like it's the same with Stagecoach. When I was there 4 or 5 years ago, it was more than that now. I was doing the sound check. We were out on the stage doing it, and there had been another act before me. And these guys, I was listening to them, and they were very good. And they had all these women down there, dancing around and having a blast. And I thought, well, we're going to go down like a lead balloon, And so we went up stage and we started sound checking. And by the time the 20-minute sound check was over, there had been 1,000 people. There were suddenly like 40,000 people there. So they'd come to hear me. And so I played a lick on the guitar and they screamed and yelled. They got all excited. So when we opened up and we went to work, they went nuts. But, they vote with their feet.
Yeah, it's like a literal applause meter right there.
Yeah, right.
If they like you, you'll know if they like you or not.
I know. That's right.
Well, perfect. Our time's kind of at an end, Don. I appreciate this. I really do. It's cool to talk to a literal icon. Kind of just one last thing, as far as music today is concerned, what are your opinions, being that, you come from that older generation of, songwriting and stuff? How do you kind of feel about the music today that you listen to?
Well, if you look at Taylor Swift and you look at Ed Sheeran, they're two very, very different stars who are gigantic. One goes on stage with a little guitar and flips a switch with his foot, and plays to 90,000 people. Now he's connecting and meaning something to those people. The other goes on stage and puts on a huge extravaganza, and she is giving so much happiness to that audience. All you have to do is see the videos of the pure joy they have of being around this girl and her singing and her songs and the way she's dressed and all the things she's doing. So there's room for everybody, really. If you want to do what I did, then study Ed Sheeran and learn how he did what he did, and start to write songs that feel, a little bit more like they write now. But still, he sings Vincent beautifully, so he's a very talented guy. But, there are people that you can lock onto and study in order to understand what's going on now. If you're young and you want to start, there's a new world out there. But it's two different kinds of things. It's the big extravaganza, or it's the intimate approach, and both you can be very successful doing either one of those things.
Absolutely. There's artistry in both of them. Well, Don, I really appreciate this again. I'll let you get back to your day. I've got to head into the studio here. So, hey, I hope you have a great rest of your day. And when you come out to Grand Junction, I might give Scott or whomever a call, see if we can't talk with you again.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm talking about. Well, it was an absolute pleasure, Don, and we'll chat with you later on.
You take care of yourself now, okay?